All right, raise your hand if you have ever heard of the career ladder as a metaphor for managing your career. Just about all of you in this room. For a lot of us, this starts getting implanted into our brains from a very young age. If not middle school these days, it's preschool, where it's get the right grades, have the right talents and interests. Then we get to high school, and it's do all the right extracurriculars, take the SATs, get into the right university, get the right internships, major in the right things, all so that you can graduate and get the dream job, or at least a lucrative one, right upon graduation. For how many of you has managing your career in this way, or your schooling, led you to feel something like this? Yeah, tired, stressed, burnt out, exhausted, feeling like you're not good enough, you're not smart enough, you don't have what it takes, like you're missing something in this formula of how to get from here to there, all the way until you get to the top. And then what? Even when you're CEO of a company someday, they still want to learn, they still want to grow, they still want to develop themselves. But instead, we run ourselves into the ground trying to follow this template of what is expected of us. Because for a long time, many of us don't know any better. The template is easy. It's laid out for us. And there comes this critical point, and for everyone it's different. It might be when you graduate from college. It might be sooner. It might be that quarter-life crisis that knocks you on your ass when you're 25 or somewhere thereabouts. And that's when we start to realize that something is off. I know I've certainly had this experience. I tried to do everything right growing up. I tried to follow this, be a great student. In high school, I was editor of the newspaper. I got into UCLA. I double majored. I took a leave of absence to help start a company with one of my professors. I went back to graduate in 3 years, got a job at Google, and by the time I was 24, I was a manager at Google. By the time I was 25, I was totally and utterly exhausted. Absolutely exhausted. I found myself tired, crying at work more times than I would like to admit. I was falling apart. And I didn't know what to do about it. Because the template that I had been following, that ladder of go, 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 do, achieve, didn't feel very good. I remember I attended a training session at the time. It was called Managing Your Energy. And they asked the question, is the life you're living worth the price you're paying for it? I thought long and hard about whether it was worth it. Is this sustainable? Could I operate the next 25 years of my career, or the next 50 years of my career, the way I had been running the first 25? And the answer was no. But even with that awareness, I didn't figure it out right away. I was at the Disneyland of companies. My friends and even colleagues that I worked with through blogging would have done anything to work at Google. And they said, the perks are so amazing. You have a dream job. Eventually, I was there for a total of 5.5 years, worked my way onto the coaching and career development team. In theory, on paper, I was doing my dream job. But over those years, I also started blogging on the side, life after college. I started writing a book. And there was this little seedling of my own company and my own business that I would never have called it that at the time. I would have called it a pipe dream. But it was growing. And I started to realize that I couldn't do both. And there came this pivotal moment where my book came out last March. The New York Creative Interns helped throw the launch party. It was very exciting. And I took this unpaid 3-month leave to do a self-funded book tour. And that's when I realized I can't keep doing this to myself. I don't want to be so exhausted. I don't care what everyone says anymore. I need to listen to my own gut. And so on July 5th of last year, I quit. I decided not to go back after my sabbatical was over. People thought I was insane, of course. It was like breaking up with a celebrity, breaking up with Brad Pitt. You really think you can do better than Google? Who was I to think that I could run my own company as a solopreneur, move to New York, be a coach, author, speaker extraordinaire, and somehow make myself happier than Google could make me with a great salary and 3 meals a day and yoga, gym, all these benefits? Don't get me wrong, I loved my time at Google, but Google in my own life and me staying there was kind of following the ladder. It was following what was expected of me. And I realized that it wasn't fair to them for me to continue doing that if it felt like something was off, and it wasn't fair to my own projects either. So it's helped me realize that the ladder doesn't work anymore. We are in a new era. The internet has since come in. This idea of a career ladder is outdated. I encourage you to think of your career like a smartphone. Your phone is your own. Your education and your upbringing is your out-of-the-box phone, and then it's up to you to add apps for various skills and interests, education, side hustles, projects, whatever it is that you're working on, that's yours to create. So the whole idea of career in the age of the app is dynamic, it's fluid. There's no fixed ladder, there's no prescription, there's no great resume in the sky that you should be pursuing job opportunities for. Instead, you make your career your own. And in this model, nothing is permanent. It's not so linear such that if you miss one rung on the ladder, you're screwed and you've fallen off into oblivion. It's customizable. You get to keep adjusting as you move along. And an app can be something like a skill that you're learning at your current job. It can be your education. Maybe some of you are getting a master's degree or you want to go back to school. An app can even be something like cooking class, or in my case, I did yoga teacher training. I didn't know where it fit into anything. It just felt good to me, and it brought me energy. There are 4 key principles to managing your career in this way, and I think this is really managing your life, not just career. The first is every job or project will teach you valuable skills. Break them down into their component parts. So instead of putting this pressure on ourselves to be always doing exactly the right thing or have that perfect job, I know it's really tough right now. I work with a lot of coaching clients where it's taking 6 or 8 months to find a job that they even like, maybe don't love. And so it is hard, but I'm not here to say that to discourage you. What I want to encourage you is look at within what you're doing, how can it serve you later on? How can whatever you're doing now give you some valuable apps? So in my own life, when I started at Google, I was doing AdWords product training, and I was teaching new hires how to do customer service for AdWords. Was I passionate about how to set a daily budget or place analytics tracking code? No, not really. But it gave me the practice to be up in front of a room every day so that I can come up here and speak to all of you. And so that was an app that I learned. It wasn't complete and perfect in and of itself, but it was a building block. The next principle is, just like your phone, it's working hard. Recharge. Forget the marathon mindset. This is from an awesome book that I read called The Power of Full Engagement, where the authors tell us to, instead of running our lives like a marathon, where we put in these 12-hour days, nonstop, go, 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 and then all of a sudden at 60 years old, we wake up and realize that we're really exhausted and now it's time to retire. They say focus on sprints and recovery instead. What does that mean? A lot of us are really good at sprints. We're good at sprinting, studying for finals, or launching some big project, or doing something huge at work. Where we fall short, actually, is often in recovery. We don't build in the time to rest and recover. And a lot of us, I speak for myself, are good at putting so much pressure to do and create and accomplish that we forget that it's just as important to rest and recover. I remember when my book was coming out, I was working around the clock. I was working at Google. I was working on the book and blog on the weekends. And it was 3 weeks before the book was going to launch. And my friend sat down with me at Chipotle, and he said, "How are you?" And I was like, "I'm good." And he's like, no, not Jenny Blake, the author. "How are you, Jenny?" And my face just got all scrunchy, and then I just started crying. In the middle of Chipotle, I was sobbing. I was so tired that actually for the next 3 weeks, arguably the most critical weeks for my book launch, I didn't do anything. Nothing on my to-do list got done. And that is what started to hammer it in for me, that it really is about sprint and recovery, not just running a marathon at full blast. The next principle is delete apps often. Be vigilant about clearing clutter. Just like your phone, if you have too much on there, it gets slow. This is about one of my favorite quotes, learn to say no to the good so that you can say yes to the great. What in your life is working and do you want more of? And what in your life do you want less of? feels, as Martha Beck, she's one of my favorite authors and life coaches, she says, one good barometer is if it feels shackles on, like you have 50-pound weights on your ankles when you think about a person or a task, or shackles off, freeing and exhilarating. So within your current job or set of projects or your life overall, what feels shackles on and constricting, and what feels shackles off and freeing? Find and do more of the shackles off. I know that sounds like it's stating the obvious, but even if all you did today was leave and pick one shackles on thing to eliminate and one shackles off thing to pursue, that's an amazing start. Finally, it's okay to dream. Start figuring out what you love and what gets you in the zone, even if you don't know how to get there yet. I'm going to come back to this concept, but so many people, this is a conference about find and follow your passion. It sounds great, but I'm sure maybe this happened to you at some point today. What likes to happen is that our inner critic likes to chime in and say, how dare you think that you can start a business? How dare you think that you can go get a job in this industry or this field? How dare you think that you can go talk to this person and ask them out for, coffee or lunch? It's okay to dream. If there's one thing that you take today, I'm sure you'll take a lot, but don't sell yourself short. Don't cut off your process before you've even dreamt. What a lot of people do, one time one of my coaches said to me, it's like the tyranny of the hows. If you worry so much about how you're going to do something, you'll never get that full vision and that full dream, and that's really what will propel you forward. So speaking of which, this, again, we're here to find and follow your passion. And well, how do you do that? How many of you want to write a book someday? Run a marathon? Travel the world? Start a company? Cool. There's a lot of stuff out there. I'm sure there's plenty of stuff that I haven't listed. And when you think about doing that big goal, how many of you feel something like this? Yeah, this is taken from my brain to the page. This is what I go through when I think about doing something new. There's me, there's the goal, and the fire pit of failure and death. And my brain says to me, if I can't get from here to there overnight with perfection, then I'm a total failure, and don't bother. It's harsh. But the first step is just becoming aware. We all have this. So don't wait for permission. Don't wait for someone to say to you, you have permission to run a marathon. I'm the slowest runner ever. I did run a marathon. I finished slower than most people could walk, than probably my grandma could walk it. But I ran, and I finished it. No one's going to give you permission to write a book, to share your ideas. They're not going to wave a magic wand and say, I hereby bless you with permission, you're now ready. You have to choose that for yourself. And the more scared you are, the better off you are. If you're scared, it means it's something big. It's a sign that you're on exactly the right track. So instead of letting your inner critics derail you, thank them. That's great. That means you're onto something, and that's where the real growth comes from. One of my favorite parts of my book is the one I didn't write, and it's a story called The Parable of the Trapeze. You can Google this. It's awesome. I send it to every single person who writes to me through my blog. And the author basically says that our life is a series of trapeze bars, and we're holding onto this old bar, and that's our comfort zone. And then pretty soon in the distance, we see a new bar coming toward us, and that's our transition, our change. And there's this terrifying time where in order to grab that new bar, whatever the new thing is, we have to let go of the old one, and we're not holding on to anything. And that can be utterly terrifying, but that's where the real growth occurs. So I want you all to close your eyes for a minute and think about where in your life, I still see eyeballs. Close your eyes for a minute and think about where in your life you may have a transition coming up. What's that new bar off in the distance? What will your life look like once you have grabbed onto that new bar? How will you feel? And who will you become in the space between bars? Great. can all open your eyes. I encourage you, that's a good one to come back to. It's a good one for a journal exercise or to write down your thoughts. The point here is that big goals require some blind faith. Just because we're ready to grab that new bar doesn't mean that we have the whole path lined up perfectly. In most cases, you won't. Anyone in this room, I see a lot of people who have started their own businesses and have thriving companies, and they can tell you whatever plans they had probably went out the window, that you will not see the whole path at the outset, but it's on faith that you reach for that new bar anyway. It's not a ladder. It's not a linear process. It is not a template, and no one can hand it to you. But if you start and you have the courage to start and take that leap, things will start to happen. People will come into your life. Serendipity will start to become a bigger factor in things that you do. So how to find your courage? I'll make this pretty quick. Notice who's talking. Martha Beck, another great principle she has is our social self versus our essential self. Social, who we are for friends, teachers, family, employers, coworkers. Essential self, who we are at our core. When you are looking to make a big decision, who is doing the talking? If you're staying in something that you don't really like or love, is it for your social self or for your essential self? Secondly, what does your gut say? Whenever coaching clients come to me and they say, I just don't know. I don't know what to do. The first thing I'll say is, well, what does your gut say? They always know. They always know. So learn to listen to your gut. Ask yourself the same thing. If you're feeling uncertain, ask yourself, what does my gut say? And it is like building a muscle. It takes practice. Finally, embrace uncertainty. Be comfortable being uncomfortable. That was the biggest thing that I learned when I left Google was actually the money thing. I was terrified that I'd be living in a van down by the river. I'm proud to say that I'm not, but it was how am I going to support myself? And actually, the biggest thing I had to learn was how to embrace uncertainty every day, to not know where my paychecks were going to come from and to be okay with that. And it's this really incredible thing of being willing to say, okay, I'm entering this new transition, I'm grabbing for that new bar with some uncertainty here, and I'm okay with it. I'm going to do it anyway. A few resources that I want to share. I have 20 plus templates that you can use to do career planning or budgeting. So feel free to go to my website, lifeaftercollege.org. Normally you have to subscribe for my newsletter to get these, but for you, because I think you're fabulous, you could just go straight to the link if you don't want to subscribe, though I only write once a quarter anyway. And then I also just launched a course called the Acorn Project, which is meant to help you do some of these reflection-based exercises to help you reflect on what you learned today, to find your passion, and to create a plan for how to take very meaningful action steps toward it. So I leave you with one of my favorite sayings that my dad always reminds me, and that's, you can't cross the Grand Canyon in 2 small leaps. Thank you.